This week's video is brought to you by Policy Genius.
Maybe you don't live your life quite the same way that we do. Maybe you're not actively on the roof like I am. Maybe you're not actively using heavy equipment like I do. Maybe you're not regularly plowing snow like I do. In the last 10 years, I've had 5 fairly close friends leave this earth way too soon. Only 4 of them had life insurance policies. As hard as those situations can be to deal with, by having life insurance in place, it's naturally going to help things move along just that much better. You can save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. Policy Genius compares the top life insurance companies to find you the right coverage at the best possible price.
Start the new year off right and breathe easy knowing that your family is protected.
Because Policy Genius is an independent broker, they fight for the customer, not the insurance company. And by the way, Policy Genius never sells your information to other companies and doesn't add extra fees. You could save $1,300 or more per year by using Policy Genius to compare life insurance policies.
Once you get life insurance, you can cross a huge task off your 2021 to-do list. Visit policygenius.com/Red Poppy Ranch to shop the market and start saving today.
Okay, I am off to get more stuff. Both of those trucks are gone. We sold the camouflage truck, and then we sold that 1-ton that was sitting in the driveway. It ended up working out really good. Both of the people that bought those trucks really needed what they had to offer, so it worked out good for everybody. But now I have room to get the stuff that I need to finish Rhett's new Dodge truck. We're gonna take that flatbed off of Rhett's truck and put a regular bed on it, and then we're going to get rid of those dually axles and put single rear wheel axles on it. The bed I found about a week ago, right after I got the truck. I found the bed about 2.5 hours south. It was just a perfect bed. It's had a snug top on it for most of its life, so it's just not used and abused. It's not rusted out, but it's 2.5 hours away, so that means I'm going to spend 5 hours in the truck to get that bed. The bummer is, I noticed last night on Facebook that there's just as clean of a bed 30 minutes away from us. But I committed to that guy to buy that bed, so I'm gonna go get it. So I'll spend the rest of the night in the truck, pulling this big long trailer everywhere I go. But the next step after getting that bed back here is to get those axles. I found a guy, again, about 2.5 hours away that has the right axles for that truck. I hope he still has them. He's kind of been waiting on me. So then once we get the bed and the axles here, we swap everything out and put that front drive shaft in that truck, and Rhett's basically good to go. So Anyway, I get to drive down into the belly of the beast and deal with rush hour traffic, all in the name of my 16-year-old son's truck. So anyway, here we go. The fact that I spent 5 hours driving down to pick up a truck bed when I could have driven a half of an hour and picked up a comparable truck bed causes me to think about my priorities. When I found this first truck bed on the internet, I messaged the guy hoping that he would have it in a week when I was prepared to come down and get it. But I did not commit to anything. A week later, he sent me a message and said the bed is ready. Somewhere in the middle of that message was when I discovered that there was a comparable bed sitting in someone else's garage much closer than the 5 hours that I would drive to pick up this particular bed. I contemplated on what I would say to the first guy to try and get out of driving 5 hours to pick up that truck bed. The end result is I decided I needed to do the right thing, drive down and pick up that truck bed regardless of how far away it is. I hooked onto my 20-foot car hauler trailer, which truthfully is way too much trailer to go down and pick up this truck bed with, but I can't get to my other trailer up on the hill right now. So I drug a very heavy trailer that's rated at a 12,000 pound capacity 2.5 hours down south to pick up a truck bed that weighs maybe 350 pounds. Pulling that trailer empty is horrendous. It beats me up, and for whatever reason, it doesn't like that particular interstate. The long and short of it is, I went down and picked up the truck bed, spent 2 more hours in the truck than I anticipated. I was sore for another 24 hours after that, but I felt good about it because I did what I said I was going to do. Now, I don't tell you this because I'm trying to act like I'm somehow better than anybody else out there, because I've been stood up before. As a matter of fact, the very first day that I had those 2 trucks listed for sale, I was stood up. After I did a whole bunch of work to make sure the trucks were ready, I was stood up. But no big deal. I sold the trucks and it all worked out. I can remember a whole bunch of times my dad making it very clear to me that one of the few possessions I had as a young man was my word. It was important that my word have value. Now back to my initial point about owning my time. I do what I want with my time, and I've somehow convinced a whole bunch of strangers to waste their time watching a video I might put up on YouTube. And this again has given me more time to do what I do. I have regret with my older 3 kids because I was never around. I spent most of my time trying to make a living, as most family men do. After a whole lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice, I figured out how to make a living where I didn't spend as much time away from my family. Being around when my family needs me is one of the single greatest blessings that I have in my life. Because of this, the lifestyle that we live, that would otherwise require more time than the average person could give to it, but I'm able to spend that time doing whatever needs to be done. There's always something that needs to be done. Driving 5 hours down south to pick up a truck bed when I could have driven about an hour and accomplished the same thing might be considered a waste of time by some, but I'm a firm believer in what goes around comes around. And at the end of this week, everything worked out just fine. I got rid of the trucks, cleared up some parking space for more projects. I picked up a really unique wood stove that I'm going to use in the cabin, and while it needs a little bit of help, it's going to work fine. Now I just have to figure out how I'm going to get this little wood stove up to the cabin in the middle of winter. Okay, even like this thing is, I could make it work. My hope was that I could put this thing back together and put it up there in the cabin. This is about the perfect size for the little cabin up there. The handle here is broken. All the decorative stuff around the front would just be cool to have. The top plate has been repaired, and when they repaired it, it warped. So it doesn't sit totally flat, which means it'll probably leak. I could probably find something like that. And this top piece is also where there's a crack in the hinge. I am not comfortable welding that. We used to have an old guy here in town that could do all of this stuff, and his health is pretty bad, so so he's no longer available. So as soon as I can find somebody to do that, I'm gonna have that welded. It's just too thin. I'm just not comfortable hooking my arc welder up. I understand the process. You preheat it, you get the right nickel rod and all that stuff. I just don't have enough experience doing it. This is where Cedar's dad would come in really, really useful. He literally is a master at all the welding cast iron and brazing and all that fun stuff. But I can't decide what to do with this thing. I didn't give a whole lot for it, but I gave enough for it that I want to try. The Junior Oak or the Fuller Warren Company, they made hundreds of styles. And so I'm sure there's somebody out there that has something very similar to this that I'm just gonna have to do some homework and try and find the parts. But I don't know if the value is there to put a whole lot of effort into it. The handle, this handle is also broken. This handle would go, there would have been a longer piece. It would have sat like that. I don't know. I like the unique stuff. I like the cool old antique stuff, but this might be this one might be better sitting in the garden or something. Anyway. I want you to go down the hill, but make sure it's at first. Can I help you?
I want to do it. Go. Ah!
Go, hurry up. That's not safe. In the midst of all my travels this week, I managed to run over to the Sawmill in one of the neighboring towns and make an attempt at buying some more 1x12 siding. He had almost nothing sitting there. I told him I needed at least 60 more pieces, and he said he would do his best to have it done in the next 3 weeks. After talking with Cedar, I decided that I needed to get the siding that we have put up on the shop so I can get a more definite number on just how much we in fact need. The siding has been sitting in the shop slowly drying out, and while it's cold outside, the weather's perfect for putting up the board and batten siding. Of course, I'm trying to do this in a way where I don't have any more waste than I have to, but the end result is there's just going to be waste. When the siding is done, the leftover scraps will be used for firewood that we will always need to keep warm this time of year. Thus far into winter, we've had a very light year for snow. As a matter of fact, we've had so little snow that I'm a bit nervous, because the truth is the mountains all around us and the flatlands need the water. I've gone back and looked at some of our other videos from this time a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and even 4 years ago. And in some cases, we had already had over 100 inches of snow. I'm not sure what we've had this far, but if it's over 24 inches of snow, I would be surprised. When the snow melts, hopefully it will be a slow melt, which means the moisture goes into the ground before it just runs off. The slower the snow melt, the less mud we seem to have, and that seems to directly affect how long it stays green and beautiful. If we have a low year for snow, it will more than likely be dry too early, and there could be potential dangers with fire. The one thing I can say for certain is that every winter that we've spent up here, they have been unique. I will continue to work on the board and batten siding come Monday, and by the end of the week it should be done.
Okay, here we are again.
Another fireside chat.
I love that someone called this the cold chat.
The cold chat.
Cold chat. So when you can see your breath when we're by the fire, it's really cold.
Today, it's colder in the shop than it is outside. We're going to get after it today. This one might be a little cold, I guess. I had the thought that we would talk about
Preparedness.
preparedness.
So are we preppers? Is that a good question? You did the deep breath. That means no.
I just hate that word. I just despise that word. All the negative connotations attached to it. But here's how I look at it, and here's kind of how I think about things. We made a decision early on when we started having a family, when we started having kids, that I would go out and make a living while Cedar managed the house and worked at home. And because that burden of responsibility is on me, one of the greatest fears I had was this idea that I couldn't provide for my family. And naturally that motivated me, caused me to be a an even harder worker, but it also caused us to put things aside, set things aside, like food storage, like, I don't know, even reserves with money, so that I could never be put in a position where I had to look my wife and kids in the eyes and say, I can't do it. I can't feed you, or I can't pay the bill this month. And this is not, I'm not going after anybody that's ever had to lean on somebody else for charity. But what I'm saying is being prepared for whatever comes at us, especially now more than ever, has always had value in my life. I've told the story before where I can remember in the 80s, my parents putting together 72-hour kits because there was a genuine concern around the Cold War. My parents also were very involved as far as having food storage as well. So,
And that's like preparation for like a loss of a job, or if a family got sick, or if suddenly something happened to your spouse or that you don't want to happen.
yeah, this is not necessarily tied to what may be going on in the world right now, literally as we speak. But I can tell you this much. If you're not prepared now for I don't know, for being locked in your home for the next 2 weeks, if you're not prepared, I don't know, but what I do know is there's not too many things that I'm not willing to do. Again, especially in our situation. I try to keep excess gasoline around because we use gasoline all over the place. So I typically keep excess, meaning like 20 to 30 gallons. It's not insane.
Like the chainsaw and the generator and things like that still have to run.
Okay, the side by sides, all of those things take, but so does your car, by the way. Mm-hmm. And a few weeks back, in our little community here, we saw what happened when the entire power grid in our county went out. You could not get gas. You could not get groceries.
Food? Even the fast food restaurants weren't even open.
The backup generator at our local grocery store did not work. So even pulling out cash and trying to pay for it with cash, they were not prepared to do that. And I'm sure if time had gone on, if there had been a long-term power outage, maybe they would have gotten to that place. But the scary part is a huge percentage of that food in that grocery store would have ended up in the garbage because they did not have the ability to keep their refrigerators going and their freezers going and things like that. So I don't know what is around the corner. I'm not one of these doomsday people, but this all goes back to that fear of just simply being the provider for my wife and kids. That's I guess that has scared me enough to make efforts in being prepared wherever I can be prepared.
We also live so far out of town. So if something happened where we couldn't get into town, if my car didn't start or whatever, we also need to be prepared. We couldn't just walk to the grocery store or do whatever. So
in our life, the factors are real simple to me. Can I keep my family warm? Can I keep my family fed? And do we have water? It's literally that simple. In a worst case scenario, you guys saw last video, in a worst case scenario, I have to use gasoline to run the generator that pumps water up to our water tanks in a worst case scenario.
when there's no sun.
When there's no sun. If we had some crazy storm that hung around for 3 or 4 or 5 days, well, obviously it doesn't take that much. It took 3 days for us to use up 2,500 gallons of water. Again, I hate being petroleum dependent. We need propane in the house for the dryer, for the water heater, and for the stove. But truthfully, those 3 things we could live without if we had to. Okay? So I don't have to have propane, but we have to have water. We really need water. And so, again, for that reason, I keep the gasoline around that I do. One of the other things I like to keep around, above and beyond all of the food storage. Truthfully, at this point, if we're talking about beans and rice, it's probably a little bit late for you. But again, I guess it's never too late to start.
We've also had people ask what kind of things we do store, and the basics. I mean, like green beans and corn, canned foods that we know that we will eat.
Yeah.
That soups and simple things too that we could just heat up if we needed to.
Yeah, the beans and rice is real easy to store, and you may get bored with. I'll tell you this much: when I was a young fella, about 18 years old, I went 3 months eating whatever I could scavenge out of the wilderness in northeastern Arizona, but we did have a small amount of rice and beans and things that were kind of supplemental given to us. And when you are limited by your food, all you think about is food. And so variety, spices, we don't keep it simple. While we have the bases covered with our food storage, we also have about 350 pounds of pork. We also have other things that, it should be a long time before we have to get serious about where our food's coming from. So
why we bottle our chicken too. When you have the bottled chicken, our pork, it's in the freezer. And if something happens to our freezer or the power, then we're going to be up a creek. So we do have like the bottled chicken that is shelf stable for at least 10 years that we know about. We haven't died yet, but we usually do eat our chicken fast enough that it doesn't matter. But yeah, so stuff like that.
Anyway, we just would challenge you to, regardless of where you live, I don't care if you're right in the middle of the city. Over the last year, we've seen lots of the local grocery stores have to go out of business because they couldn't make it. And so, to me, I would just challenge you to get up close and personal with some of these things that are going to be pretty important if you can't get them. So we hope you guys are all doing well. Off on the gas. Now go up one time. Up. That's second. Now we're going to be slow and careful. Remember to use the brakes.
Oh, whoa.
Now you can go a lot faster. It's still perfect. See, now it's not so loud. You understand?
So when it's not, or when it is loud, then
That's first gear. It's going to get less loud because you're not using as much motor, but it's going to go faster. You have to be more careful.